What do you make of it all? I mean, quite significant sums of money in the end.
Yes, I mean, it's quite clear that something needs to be done to address this once-in-generations type cost of living crisis. I mean, staying on top of rising prices has become a daily battle for many households. And the Chancellor did actually announce what I think is some decent policies to help, especially those who are the most vulnerable to this cost of living crisis. So we've heard earlier about the £650 payment to around, well, over 8 million low-income households, which will be split in two instalments, one in July and the other in autumn.
And this is something that we're not necessarily used to in this country, in the sense that it's going to be paid essentially directly into people's bank accounts.
Indeed, and it's just to help with the cost of living crisis. I suppose a lot has been said about pressures on energy bills, which the boss of Ofgem recently said to MPs that it's likely to go up by £800 in autumn, which means that the typical household bills is going to swell to £2,800 per year, which is quite something. But also we know that the price of food, the price of petrol and other things, seemingly all areas of expenditure, is on the rise. So this will help ease that burden.
And in saying that, as you rightly pointed out, this is, on the whole, largely targeted at people on lower incomes, people who are obviously feeling that squeeze the most.
Yes, and to be fair, the Chancellor did announce the £400 grant for all households to help with this heightened energy bill that's only going to get worse come autumn. And initially, actually, so under the initial scheme, it was 200, and households were expected to pay that sum back over 5 years, but that has now been scrapped, and it's now a £400 grant. But I suppose middle earners are still facing a cost of living crisis, obviously not to the same extent as lower earners.
But yeah, because the concern is that obviously that there has to be a cut-off line somewhere, and if you're just above that cut-off line, you're not getting the same amount of money as someone who's earning just a little bit less.
Exactly. I suppose this whole package is to get those who are most vulnerable, above, the cut-off line, I suppose, to make sure that they remain financially buoyant in these troubling times. But those who earn decent middle-income earners,
It's going to be a big hit.
It's going to be a big hit, and it's going to result in lifestyle changes for many, unfortunately.
And just in terms of whether this will be enough, because we're expecting inflation to hit double figures, as you say, we don't know where that cap is, but the Ofgem boss is suggesting it's going to go up again quite substantially by around £800 more. I mean, is your sense, is this enough, what we've heard today from the Chancellor, or do you think he is going to have to possibly come back again later in the year and do even more?
I suppose it all depends on the outlook, on what happens with inflation. Bearing in mind we still have a war going on in Ukraine, unfortunately, and that's adding to the inflationary pressures back here in the UK. So it really does depend. But for many households, unfortunately, many people will still struggle to, stay financially afloat in this cost of living crisis.
Yeah, it's going to be a very, very difficult year ahead.